Over the course of the next several lessons, we're going to be working with this Two Trees olive oil boutique website. This is a small website that was created for a small company, and it has a shop page where they would like to sell a few kinds of olive oil. They just want to show an estimate of how much it will cost to ship it. So let's take a look at how this thing is put together. We have these blocks with quantities of each kind of oil, a selection of a few states where they will ship to, some shipping methods that cost various prices, and then a few special instructions. So right now, in this version, which is shop.html in the Two Trees folder, there's nothing hooked up. So I can click this all I want and nothing happens. If we look at the after file, this is shop.after.html. Just look at it in a browser. This is where we're going to get to. I can enter a few quantities for how many of these I want. I'll choose a state, choose my shipping method, and a few special instructions. And then I can estimate the total. And I get it here in this box, and then I get a few little bits of extra information here of these separate calculations. So this is where we're going to end up. But let's take a little deeper look at where we're starting. So I'm going to squeeze this window down. And now we can see shop.html in my text editor. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit past all this initial stuff. You can see that there's a little bit of JavaScript up here that was inserted by the editor that this designer originally used, but let's keep scrolling down. And here we are. Okay, so we're getting into this area. Now, one of the things I want to point out is that if you're used to working with CSS, you know that IDs and classes are very important for targeting where your styles go. They're going to be at least as important when you're working with JavaScript to extract those elements from the document object model and do different things with them. So I've set an ID on the form, and then I've grouped each of these into divs with a class, trying to use some relatively semantic markup here. And then each form element has an ID, and then it has an associated label, which also uses that ID, of course. There's all our items. And then as we get down here into this area, which I'm calling the summary with that ID, once again, each of these things is grouped with a class, a couple classes in fact, and then each form element has an ID. This will make things a lot easier down the line. Depending on the type of project you're working on, you might not have direct control, even as a designer, over the kinds of markup that you're using. That may be something that's completely out of your hands, whether it's because you're using a CMS that's hard to customize, or who knows, various other reasons. But if you do have control over the markup, it's a very good idea to put IDs on each of your elements to make them easier to access. So here they are, my radio buttons and my checkboxes. And then finally down here is the region where the calculations are actually going to take place. So I have my click to estimate label here. I have an ID on the button. I have an ID on the text field where the results are going to be inserted. And then down here, I have another div with the ID results, which is where I'm going to put that extra little bit of metadata at the end. So we can see that all of these elements have IDs and classes, which helps in styling and will also help in JavaScript. So let's move on and start hooking these things up and make them actually interactive.